Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to Arbitrary 20. Today we're going to be looking at a 1 to 20 build guide for a Sorcadin, or a Sorcerer Paladin, mainly. So yeah, let's get right into it with our race and background choices. For the race here, I'm going to go with Variant Human, though if you don't want to go Variant Human and you're okay with delaying your feats a bit and possibly not capping your Charisma, you can go Harengon. Initiative is super important for this build, and we don't have a fix for that until level 11 with the Variant Human build. I still want to get the stuff online sooner and eventually cap my Charisma at 20, so that's why I'm still going to go with Variant Human, but Harengon is a really good choice as well. And for the feat, we're going to go with either Warcaster or Mounted Combatant. This build is about Find Steed, but we won't have Find Steed till at least level 5 because it's a second level Paladin spell. So if you want to ride a regular horse, until then, take Mounted Combatant. If you don't have access to that or you don't want to, I would say take Warcaster. Whichever one of these you don't take, you'll end up taking at your 4th level of Paladin. And for our background, I'm going to recommend Strixhaven as always. Until more of these come out, these are the best backgrounds in the game right now. They give you an expanded spell list and a free feat for taking them. There's nothing specific we want from that, and I'm not going to assume you can take it at your table either, but I think I have to mention it just because of how good it is. And our starting ability scores, assuming point buy. If you're rolling for stats, I would say prioritize Charisma and Constitution and make sure you have at least a 13 Strength. But our starting ability scores from top to bottom are a 13 in Strength, a 12 in Dexterity, a 15 in Constitution, plus 1 from Variant Human for a 16, an 8 in Intelligence, and 8 in Wisdom, and a 15 in Intelligence plus 1 from Variant Human for 16 as well. And before we get into level 1, I do want to talk about the mounted combat rules in D&D, as there seems to be a ton of different ways people rule this. But I want to mention this now in case you did take Mounted Combatant and you're riding a horse from level 1. So when you mount a creature, you can choose to control the mount, or you can choose to make it independent. A mount you control shares your initiative order and goes on at the same time as you, but it can only take the dash, disengage, or dodge actions, but it is guaranteed to listen to you and to do exactly what you tell it to. And a mount that you choose to make independent can take any action, but it can go against your wishes and do something else if it would like to, and it has a different place in the initiative order than you do. And we're going to go with the independent mount, and I have to think that it should still listen to you because in the spell, it says it is a loyal steed and you function as a seamless unit together. So I can't imagine that it's going to go against your wishes very often, if at all. So we're going to go independently from each other, specifically so it can take its own actions. This will be super important once we get Find Steed. And this is why initiative is super important, and that's why possibly being a Harengon might be good for this build to get that bonus. It's because we really want to end up going before our steed. So those are the rules for mounted combat we'll be using for the duration of this video. If an independent mount is ruled differently at your table, it is okay to just make it a control mount and basically just movement. This build will do slightly less damage, and you may want to adjust what spell you're concentrating on accordingly, but we're going to be assuming you're using the independent mount and it still does what you say. But with that out of the way, at level 1 we will be a Paladin 1, getting Divine Sense and Lay on Hands, some nice utility and healing features. For your starting equipment, make sure you take a Lance and a Shield. And if you're not using a mount from level 1 here, make sure you take another weapon that you can use instead of the Lance. At level 2 here, we're going to take a Sharp Turn and take 1 level in Warlock. Maybe you get in a bit of a bind in a situation while you're at level 1, and you need to make a pact with an otherworldly being to get out of it. We will be taking the Hexblade Otherworldly Patron, surprising no one, I assume. We're doing it mainly for the Hex Warrior feature, to make us attack with our Charisma modifier. This makes us single ability score dependent, which is super good, and Hexblade's Curse is a nice damage bump as well. The other reason we picked up Hexblade is so we can get the Booming Blade cantrip. That's really the only one we need. You can pick up whichever others you'd like. And for your 2 first level spells, I'd recommend Shield and Hex. Shield just for defensive purposes, and Hex would be a decent damage option for the first few levels. You can take something else if you'd like to, if you start at a higher level, or if you're okay with just waiting a little bit, you can go with a utility option or something like that. And for level 3 will be a Paladin 2, We get our fighting style. I would recommend the dueling fighting style, as once we get mounted and with our lance and shield, our lance attacks will always do an extra 2 damage. And for our spells here, I'd make sure to pick up Bless. This will actually be our best concentration until Paladin 5, and even still will be in some cases after that. And you could pick up any of the smite spells. They're pretty decent at this level. Command is a very good 1-round control spell that you could possibly use. And then obviously Cure Wounds and Detect Magic are really good healing and utility options. And obviously we get one of the staple features of Paladin, Divine Smite. This will be a huge component of this build, as the main thing we are going for is burst or Noah damage for this character. Which, if you don't know, is just like a super big 1 round of damage to try to either take out an enemy or almost take out an enemy. And I'll talk about that more and how we set that up at level 6. And at level 4 will be a Paladin 3, and we get our Sacred Oath. We'll be taking the Oath of Conquest. And we get our Oath spells, and we get Armor of Agathis. This is the reason I didn't take it back when we took a Warlock level. So we get it here. This will work great with Fine Steed once we do get it. And we also get our Channel Divinity options. Both of them are quite good. Conquering Presence will be good in certain situations. And our second option, Guided Strike, will be super nice on our Nova round when we really need a hit to go through. And thanks to Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, we also get the Harness Divine Power option for our Channel Divinity, and it's just a nice way to regain some spell slots. And at level 5 will be a Paladin 4, and we'll get an ability score increase or feat. And as I said when we chose our race, just take whichever feat you didn't take there. So if you took Mountain Combatant first, take a Warcaster now, and vice versa. And at level 6, this is when the build really comes online, will be a Paladin 5. We get extra attack, which is super good for our damage. And we also get second level spells. Find Steed and Hold Person are the biggest ones for our build here. Spiritual Weapon is also decent for damage at this level. It does similar damage to Hexblade's Curse. I would say use it if you want to split up your damage as opposed to focus it all on one target, because Hexblade's Curse still will be slightly better for single target damage. So at level 6 here, I'll speak a little bit about tactics and what you should do to sort of set up and go for this Nova or Burst round. And I know it's 50-50 right now, so with our point bot ability scores, both us and our Warhorse that I'm assuming you summon with Fine Steed will have a +1 to our initiative, but I'm still going to assume you're going before them. If you went Harengon, you will have a higher chance to go before your horse. But on the first round of combat, assuming you go before your horse and you're taking separate turns, as we talked about previously, if it's a humanoid enemy, you'll cast Hold Person, and if it's a non-humanoid enemy, we will cast Bless on ourselves and our horse and one party member. We're going to assume the humanoid enemy, because that is how we got the damage number for the thumbnail in this video. So I'll explain that here. So on that first round, we'll cast Hold Person, followed by a Harness Divine Power, our Channel Divinity, as a bonus action to get that spell slot we just used back, so we can use it for a Smite on the next turn. Then our Warhorse will take its turn, run at the enemy we just held. If it succeeded, they'll attack at advantage. And if they hit, they automatically fail the dex saving throw and fall prone, and then our horse will attack again since it successfully knocked the creature prone, again at advantage. That's the horse's turn, and eventually it'll come back to us. And on our next turn, we are going to Hexblade's Curse as a bonus action, and then attack twice. Since they are prone and paralyzed, we will be advantage and auto crit on both attacks, and we'll second level smite on both attacks. So with all of that, assuming the Hold Person goes through, our damage will be on average about 105.27 to be exact. At level 7 will be a Paladin 6. I believe this will be our last Paladin level, but we do get Aura of Protection, which is one of the best defensive abilities in the game. We can now add our Charisma modifier to all of our saving throws, and all of our allies within 10 feet of us can do that as well. At level 8 here, we'll be shifting directions a bit again, and we'll be taking our first Sorcerer level. And our Sorceress origin will be the Clockwork Soul. Maybe you traveled to the plane of Mechanus and received a bit of their magic before you left. Or maybe a being of pure order blessed you with these abilities. Let me know what you guys think a cool story would be to combine these 3 subclasses, the Clockwork Soul, the Conquest Paladin, and the Hexblade Warlock, down in the comments. But with that, for our spells here at first level sorcerer, I'd recommend Green Flame Blade as a secondary option to Booming Blade if there's resistance to lightning damage or you're fighting two enemies next to each other, or also Lightning Lore for getting those enemies closer to you so you can melee attack them. This will be really useful later for that extra reach once we can quicken spell Lightning Lore. And the only first level spell I'm going to recommend here is Silvery Barbs. For the other, you can just pick whatever you'd like, but I really think this is good to help our horse knock our target prone, or to make them fail the save of Hold Person, or other spells in the future. And for our clockwork spells, I would swap Protection from Good and Evil for Absorb Elements at this level, and we also get the Restore Balance feature. If a creature within 60 feet of us is making a d20 roll with advantage or disadvantage, we can cancel that and just make it a straight roll as a reaction. At level 9 will be a Sorcerer 2, and we get the Font of Magic ability. We gain sorcery points and the ability to convert them to spell slots, and vice versa. And at level 10 will be a Sorcerer 3, and this is another big turning point for our build. We get second level spells. The one I recommend you pick up here is Enlarge Reduce. This will be another good concentration spell for us in certain situations. I'll explain tactics again in a minute. And another big boost here is we get Meta Magic, another way to use our sorcery points. The only one we need here is Quicken Spell. Pick whichever you'd like for the second one. At level 10, our tactics change a bit, and we have 3 different spells we could be concentrating on depending on the situation. If our enemy is a humanoid, we will cast Hold Person. If the enemy is large or smaller, we will cast Enlarge on ourself and our horse. Thanks to Bind Steed, we can cast any spell that targets just us to also target our horse. And thanks to the Mounted Combatant feat, now any enemy that is large or smaller will have advantage on attacks against them. And for an enemy that is huge or greater, Bless is still our best concentration option. So for our setup round, assuming we go before our horse, as our action we will cast said concentration spell, whichever one is right for your situation, and then we will Hexblade's Curse our target as a bonus action, and then it'll go to our warhorse's turn. They will attack and hopefully knock the target prone and then attack again. And then on our Nova round, we will attack twice with our lance, smiting on both attacks, and then we will quicken spell Booming Blade and smite again on that. If our horse knocked them prone, then we'll have advantage, and if our Hold Person succeeded, we'll have advantage and auto crit thanks to them being paralyzed. And with that, here's our damage against an 18 AC. First up, a target that Hold Person went through on, we would do 162.36 damage. And then if we cast Enlarge and our horse knocked the target prone, we would be doing 117.51 damage. And without the prone, we would be doing 107.17 damage. And at level 11 will be a Sorcerer 4, and we get another ability score increase or feat. And here I would take Fey Touched, and for the first level spell I would take Gift of Alacrity. This is how we sort of bridge the gap in our initiative, making sure we go before our horse, or at least giving us a higher chance to. I believe you could potentially cast this on both you and your horse, but since we want to go before our horse, I wouldn't do that, just cast it on yourself. As I said earlier, this would be the reason to go Harengon if you wanted something like this earlier, but I think it works out okay. And the +1 will go into our Charisma. And we'll take another half feat later to make it so it is 18. And at level 12 will be a Sorcerer 5. We get 3rd level spells. For the Clockwork spells, I would swap them out eventually. I know you can only swap out one at a time, but I would recommend they both end up as Haste and Fly. Both of them can be cast on you and your horse. Fly is great for mobility, and Haste will actually replace Enlarge and Bless for best damage against those types of targets. And we also get Magical Guidance from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. It lets us use a sorcery point to reroll an ability check, potentially turning it into a success. And at level 13 will be a Sorcerer 6, and we'll get the Bastion of Law ability. It's a good defensive ability to help mitigate some damage, especially since, because of Mounted Combatant, we'll likely be making attacks against our horse come to us, and this will be good to help mitigate that. This ability also works really well with Armor of Agathis. I actually made a short on this. So when an enemy hits you with Armor of Agathis, you can use Bastion of Law, and even if you reduce that damage to 0, the Armor of Agathis damage is still the same. So it increases the effective HP of Armor of Agathis. And at level 14 will be a Sorcerer 7. We get 4th level spells. Some good ones that work on both us and our Steed would be Fire Shield, Greater Invisibility, and Polymorph. And Polymorph can actually be a clockwork spell, so you can swap that out with one of those. And at level 15 will be a Sorcerer 8, and we get another ability score increase or feat. And as I said before, we'll take a half feat here to get our Charisma to 18. It can be any half feat, there's not a particular one I think we need at the moment. At 16th level will be a Sorcerer 9, and we get 5th level spells, mainly Hold Monster. This actually becomes our new best concentration spell. On anything except undead. If you're fighting undead, go back to haste. And now we're going to group level 17 through 20 together here. And we do have a possible fighter multi-class here if you do care about your Nova damage more than those higher level spells that we might get, 6th and 7th level spells. I'm personally going to go with the other option and get those 6th or 7th level spells. But I will tell you the damage numbers at level 20 for the fighter with Action Surge as well. But Sorcerer levels 10 through 13, we'll get another ASI or feat, and we'll just take the +2 to Charisma for a 20. And we get an additional Magic option. Quicken Spell is the only one we need for our Nova round still, so pick whichever one you would like. And for 6th level spells, ones that are good and that we can cast on both ourselves and our horse, I would say is Tasha's Otherworldly Guise and Fizzband's Platinum Shield, both super cool defensive options. And for 7th level spells, we get some really cool options here. We get Crown of Stars and Draconic Transformation. Both of these are super good sustained damage spells, and Draconic Transformation is an amazing movement option as well. And at level 20 here, we'll go over damage again. Our tactics haven't changed a whole lot for single target damage. If you want to go more sustained or area damage, Crown of Stars or Draconic Transformation I think are the way to go. If we cast Hold Monster or Hold Person on a target, we would do 222.39 damage. And with Action Surge, assuming we took at least 2 levels of Fighter, giving up those 6th and 7th level Sorcerer spells, we would do 321.45 damage in that single round. So it does make quite a big difference, about 100 damage. But I still like those 6th and 7th level spells a bit more, and it does, I think, synergize with the Steed a bit more. But yeah, that is our build for this video, guys. If you want to check my last build video out, you can see that here. But if not, have an awesome day, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.